So you don't get anything done if it isn't with the people that you're helping, right? They have to own it. They have to use their creativity and they have to have the will to improve, right? So our jobs were to influence that, to help them feel empowered and engaged, right? So that they could say, this is ours, this matters to us. This is not some engineer's idea. This is what's going to keep us safer, more productive, less stress, better customer serving. And like you said, it's all about people. It's the respect for their wishes. Sometimes we have to give them a little tough love to help them get to the right place. But frankly, if they keep the customer in mind and they keep the focus on being better, things always seem to end up positive.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the New England Lean Podcast. My name is Paul Critchley, president of New England Lean Consulting. I'll be your host. This week, we welcome Adam Lawrence to the show. Adam is the managing partner of Process Improvement Partners based in Pennsylvania. Now, he's been practicing Lean for over 30 years. His experience in process improvement activities target at specifically manufacturing and business processes, having gotten his bachelor's in industrial engineering from Virginia Tech. Go Hokies. He's facilitated more than 300 Kaizen events in multiple industries all around the world, and he seeks to align leadership and team engagement to create sustainable results. And in fact, one of the stories that Adam shares with us in this episode is about a Kaizen event that he facilitated over in Russia and how he overcame some of the cultural differences that he encountered there. But I really love that story because it's certainly relatable. I mean, you don't have to travel halfway around the world to understand the crux of what Adam was kind of telling us in this story, which specifically was how the team was a little fearful of management and how, they were very, I'll say, fearful and respectful at the same time of the management hierarchy. But as a lean practitioner, again, Adam's done this several hundred times. He was able to help them get over those hurdles. And he talks a lot about the cultural significance of doing that where he was. But certainly it's relatable to any of us who have helped facilitate a Kaizen event and have encountered that same kind of a thing. Now, I mentioned that he's done this for over 30 years now. Now, using that experience, Adam has built something he calls the Wheel of Sustainability. And that was one of the reasons I reached out to Adam to be on the show because, I follow him on LinkedIn and I've seen him refer to that before. So I was really interested to learn more. So in this episode, Adam walks us through the steps of the Wheel of Sustainability. And I love that analogy of a wheel because just like a flywheel, right, you start to build that momentum and then it sort of, I won't say it takes care of itself, but it certainly has momentum that helps keep things going. So, like I said, it was a great conversation. I think there's a lot to glean from it, a lot to learn from it, because certainly the traditional Kaizen event, and I'll air quotes that, has some downsides, as we've probably all seen, and I talk about in this episode as well, my experience of having facilitated some of those and kind of what the downsides are to them. So that's why I like Adam's model of the Wheel of Sustainability because he kind of overcomes a lot of those things and gets back to really what I think Kaizen was all about initially. Now, I will say too, Adam's now he's built that Wheel of Sustainability over the years, but he used the quarantine time last year and due to COVID to turn it into a book of the same name. So the book is entitled The Wheel of Sustainability, and it's actually coming out at the end of this month, February. I believe it's the 24th. And I'll link to the show notes because I think he set up a book launch event through Eventbrite. So if you're interested, I highly recommend it. So give the episode a listen. And as always, I hope you enjoy it and I hope you get something out of it. Have a great week, everybody. Talk to you soon. All right, welcome to the New England Lean Podcast. As I mentioned in the intro, today we are joined by Adam Lawrence. Adam, hello, sir.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I'm so glad that we were finally able to find the time. We were working on this for like a month and a half now.
Right. No worries. No worries.
Well, it is what it is. Especially, it's just with everything else going on. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
everybody else, right? That listens in. It's like, man, we got 1,000 things to do right now.
That's right. Well, good things come to those who wait, right?
Well, that's what they keep saying.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Adam,
Yeah.
and again, you and I had we interact obviously on social media, especially in the last half of 2020, like everybody else, because
Right.
nobody's going anywhere or doing anything.
No, it's good. Right.
So, if you could, for those who may not follow you or have connected with you, could you
Okay.
just kind of paint your lean story arc for us a little bit?
Okay, sure. Thanks for that. So, been doing continuous improvement work for about 30 odd years, maybe 32 years or so. The first 30 years was in a corporate setting. Started out, went to Virginia Tech, so go Hokies. Graduated as an industrial engineer and went to work in a furniture company in the late 80s. Um, Got moved to Chicago as a supervisor in a ceiling grid plant. And one day I noticed this book on a shelf, and it was by a guy named Shingo.
Hmm.
And I opened the book and I said, wow, this could help me like right now. So it did. And we were able to use the concepts in the book to help make the plant safer, more efficient, and so on. So that was good. So that inspired me. And I always enjoyed working with people to solve problems. So as I built my career through this essentially the same company for about 30 years, I did a lot of operations work and a lot of CI work. And the last 6 years, they called me the lean champion for a global technical services organization within the larger company. So I used to get sent all around the world to help teams solve some pretty complex problems and just facilitate using lean principles and techniques. Got to do anything from 5S to 3P and just try as many different ways of helping teams win as I could. About 2.5 years ago, they did a bit of a global downsizing and I was invited to leave. So it was a great opportunity to try my own approach out on my own. So for the last 2.5 years, I established my own consultancy, Process Improvement Partners, and I'm very fortunate to have some clients that are quite loyal, and I've been able to go help them solve their complex business problems in a sustainable way. So it's been a lot of fun, have a lot of adventures to share, and just keep learning as we try to help others solve stuff they couldn't solve on their own.
Nice. That's not, yeah. So similar to mine, although I was in automotive and aerospace and all that kind of stuff, but very similar. Although I didn't get laid off, thankfully, I guess I kind of joke, but either way, it's an opportunity, right? So
Absolutely.
I give you credit for looking at it that way. Cause a lot of
Sure.
people would be like, well, now what? This is, and be mad about it. And, but one door closes, another door opens, right?
Absolutely right. And you know what? It's just business, right? Business is always making decisions. And actually, it was probably the best thing for me. And the only thing I say about it is, boy, I wish they had done that 5 years ago,
Right.
because it's so much fun to go out and kind of test your own methods. Can you help folks? And you're really responsible for whether it goes well, whether it goes poorly. You can only look in the mirror to say, that's my fault.
Yeah,
Right.
right. And I think
Uh,
that that's true even and correct me if you disagree, or, if you disagree, please feel free. But as lean practitioners, I think that's a big part of our roles, whether we're outside
yeah,
consultants or not, whether we work in a lean program office or we're the
right,
lean champion of a plant or a medical facility somewhere or whatever,
right.
right? Because part of our job, at least I found now that I've been out on my own, what, 8 years now, I guess, ish.
Yeah,
Is just that, where it's okay, I'm here to teach tools and how you do these certain things. What does 5S even mean? What does 5 Whys? It
right,
sounds like, do I just really
right.
ask why 5 times? That seems silly, stuff like that. But then there's the whole respect for people side, the culture side that,
Absolutely.
I find, you know, A, more rewarding, quite frankly, and B,
Mm,
that's really the important part. Because we're
right,
both engineers. I was a mechanical engineer, not industrial, but
right,
certainly my whole career was in manufacturing.
right.
So very similar there. And so you and I think both lived those lives where we have a great idea in a conference room and we go out on the shop floor
Right.
and it's not such a great idea anymore.
Right. Right. So absolutely. So you don't get anything done if it isn't with the people that you're helping, right? They have to own it. They have to be use their creativity and they have to have the will to improve, right? So our jobs were to influence that, to help them feel empowered and engaged, right? So that they could say, this is ours, this matters to us. This is not some engineer's idea. This is what's going to keep us safer, more productive, less stress, better customer serving. And like you said, it's all about people. It's the respect for their wishes. Sometimes we have to give them a little tough love to help them get to the right place. But frankly, if they keep the customer in mind and they keep the focus on being better, things always seem to end up positive.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So to that end, so I didn't realize. I knew your career, because we see each other on LinkedIn. So I sort of knew what your career path was, but I didn't realize you had flown around the world, like doing a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So are there any, tales from the road that that you think our listeners would kind of, point to, be like, that happened to me last week?
Okay, well, I can give you one that probably didn't happen to him last week.
Okay.
So we actually built a factory in Russia. Okay, so I worked for a global ceiling tile manufacturer, and part of their strategy was to build locally, right? Because Russia was actually their second largest offshore consumer. So I was part of the team. I wasn't directly part of the team, but they would bring me in to solve kind of the team gets stuck. How can I help facilitate them out? And then at startup, I also flew out to help kind of flow the material through the plant. So I have a pretty hands-on operations kind of bent to me. I'm a factory rat. I just love that stuff, right? Okay. So then they invited me to come out for their first ever value stream mapping event. So they called it a road mapping event, but it was essentially a high level value stream mapping event. And they were going to do it in February. Now this plant was
February in Russia.
February in
Nice.
Russia. Okay, so think Siberia. And
Oof.
so they wanted me to coach the local lean leader in how to do it because they knew that I was pretty good at engaging everybody in the workforce, giving everybody equal voice. And in Russia, that's not really the culture. Okay. So it's just how it is. So in February, apparently the week before I got there, it was minus 32.
Oof.
So that's really cold. I mean, that's just cold.
Yeah, even by New England standards.
One thing I learned on the road was, well, don't try to drive there. That's a bad idea. And all the roads they don't clear snow or ice from their roads because you can't, because you'd be doing that continuously. So you just drive on top of it, which is a little scary. Okay, but anyway, so his concern was he was going to be able to engage the people. He was telling me about the culture and how difficult it is if the plant manager's in the same room as the operator. They're all going to defer to the plant manager. I said, well, I can help you with that. That's no big deal. It's the power of Post-its. One idea, one person, one voice. So I was teaching him those techniques and so on. So we kick off the session and, he had me start and we all were wearing headsets because it was in Russian and I'm facilitating in English. So I had never had one of these where I had an interpreter speaking almost immediately in my ear. So there were 7 different interpreters because we were going to break into groups and so on. So that was cool. So it took a little while to get used to that, but it actually, once you got a rhythm, it didn't really slow you down. But by the end of the day, you were just mentally exhausted. But that's not the story I'm going to tell you. So I'm just leading you up to that. So anyway, one of the key issues, again, around the culture was no one questions anybody above them. So we had done our Gemba walk and we had come up with all sorts of great ideas and we had split off into sub teams. And one of the sub teams had an idea that was worth $800,000 in US, which is like, I don't know how many rubles that is, 20 million rubles. I kept fluctuating the whole week. So we let them work on those things. They're kind of shaping those ideas out. And I always bring them back together to talk to each other, right? So they can learn from each other and get some suggestions and so on. So 5 out of the 6 teams had made great progress. The $800,000 team had made no progress. Uh-oh, what's up? So once we let everybody do their work, I get with the group and I say, okay, so what's going on? What's holding us up? Well, no one will ever approve this. What do you mean no one will? This is a great idea. What are you talking about? No one ever approved it. I said, give me a moment. We'll figure this out. So I take a walk to the plant manager's office because he wasn't directly in the session at that moment. And I'm saying, Alexi, these guys are working on this awesome idea, but they're worried that they can't get it approved. What are you? Well, no one's here that can approve it. Isn't there somebody they can call? Well, we don't do that.
Mm.
Like, really? What are you talking about? He said, well, the person who's the approver is actually in our plant today. She's working on this other project, but there's no time to bother her. And I'm like, say what? So I said, well, thanks. And I leave, go back to my group. I said, hey, the approver is right in this plant. We're going to go visit her. And they're like, we can't do that. I'm like, sure we can. Just blame it on me. So we take a walk. They're all like 5
Way
feet
behind you,
me.
right?
Oh yeah. You can't make this stuff up. So I walk over, and nobody knows me. So I see there's this lady is behind she's in an office, and the door has a big window, and she's on the phone, head down, and I just stand there. And Ivan, which was the lean manager, I'm not making that name up. He's like, we should go. And I'm like, no, just wait a minute. So she looks up and she sees us. And I didn't wave. I didn't do anything. And she looks back down. And Ivan goes, oh, we got to go. I'm like, no. What's the worst they're going to do? Fire me? They're going to deport me? Come on. She looks back up, and then she makes the mistake. She does this. I was like, come on, we're going in. So I introduce myself because, I'm the American. And I say, thanks for taking, really appreciate it. We know you're busy, but this team has this really great idea. Do you have a couple minutes for them? And she says, well, I'm really busy. And I sit there and I try to make puppy dog eyes. And she goes, oh, okay, I got a few minutes. So then I said, well, let Elena talk to you about it. So they're talking in Russian. And I have no idea. But all of a sudden, the energy level is going up and the team seems excited. And all of a sudden, 15 minutes, and they're like shaking hands and hugging. That's a great idea. I'll come by and see you. Fantastic. So now the team's excited and they go back into the room. And now they're going to work on this thing because they essentially have tacit approval for this thing. And the executive comes in a little later in the day and helps them build it even better. And it spilled, the energy spilled over to the rest of the room. Now I'm going to tell you one little side story on this.
Okay.
I told you it was 15 degrees. Now, I thought I was a smart traveler. So I'm one of these people that doesn't like to have anything in their pockets when they're doing facilitation because you don't know what's going to fall out. So I have a backpack and I put the wallet and the passport and all sorts of stuff. And, it was in the meeting room and that's cool. And normally that would have been fine, except there was a fire in the plant.
Oops.
So we all had to evacuate. And of course you can't bring anything with you. So I evacuate. It's 15 degrees outside and there's like 100 and some odd people have evacuated. And I realized I'm in Russia and my passport's not with me and it might get burned down. Well, luckily it wasn't much of a fire. It was a very small fire. It was put out pretty quickly. So 30 minutes later, we're all back in this middle of the Kaizen event. And never again did I ever put a passport anywhere but in my front pocket.
There you go.
Terrible idea. Terrible idea. But that's a side story. So sorry about that. But anyway, coming back, I just figured, who else has that happened to? Probably a few people, but don't let that happen to you. So anyway, the session finishes. They did a great job. They identified millions of dollars of opportunity. They were able to implement most of it, which is fantastic. It doesn't always happen that way. And at the very end, when the team disbanded, the leadership team, because they were interested in how I was coaching Ivan, they also had never seen teams engage like this before in their plant. So plant manager says, and the ops manager says, so what'd you do different? What can we do different? I said, you can listen to your people. And they looked at me like, it's a good thing you're going home tomorrow. Because I don't think they liked that answer, but clearly that was it. All I was doing was what we do is we listen to our people, we engage them, we empower them, we give them a voice, right? It doesn't matter what country you're in. I've done it in China, in Europe, in any part of the United States you can think of, because all those areas are different too.
Sure.
People are still people, right? And all you got to do is let them share their creativity and they're going to win.
Hmm. And isn't that interesting? So, obviously we're the New England Lean podcast, and I'm in just outside of Hartford, Connecticut. So
Right.
it's pseudo regional,
Yeah.
so I'm assuming a lot of our listeners are up around this area. Although I don't know, I forget how many countries Anchor said we're in, but irregardless, what you just said is very true. People are just people,
Yeah.
right? I'm a firm believer that people get up and go to work and they want to do a good job. And,
Right.
I refer to the Gallup polls often in
Mm-hmm.
trainings and workshops that we do. So I'm always going back to 67% of people don't feel engaged at work, on
Right.
top of 3.5 million Americans quit their job every month. And I use that in our workshops. And when I throw
Right.
it out to the crowd, I'll say, take a guess. And, usually it's 500,000, maybe a million. A lot of times people don't realize that the
Right.
number is so big.
Yeah.
So I try to draw those correlations that, hey, people quit their jobs not because of money. That's usually
Right.
like number 3 on the list.
Right.
It's because they don't feel heard, trusted, respected, and engaged at
Right.
work, empowered at work. So what
Absolutely.
can we do? And it seems so simple when you look at, I mean, we're engineers, you and I. So you look at the data. What does the data tell you? Well, duh,
Right.
it tells you that people don't feel like they're engaged at work. So what's the root cause and corrective action?
Right.
Well, let's go ask the folks, right? The folks doing the work know the best. So let's go
Absolutely.
ask them and then actually shut up and listen to what they have to say.
Yeah.
And here we are at 2021,
Yeah.
and we're still facilitating those discussions.
That's right. We're still coaching and explaining the obvious to people that don't realize that they could easily do that. And don't tell your listeners this without me.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Please.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. They could. But you get so bound up in your day to day and you're fighting your fires and you've got this budget and you've got these requirements. And sometimes you just forget to slow down, relax your mind, and take in the information, listen to your people. And then if you don't necessarily agree, go verify, go see, right? Go see, take them with you. Go see, okay, you're telling me about this. Show me this. Oh, great. Okay, that makes so much more sense. So go to Gemba, go see it, verify it, goes so much faster that way. And just then you realize how good your people really are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. And I don't mean to, I mean, I was a manager for a long time, and I know 100% I made that mistake.
Sure.
And it
Me
wasn't
too.
because I didn't like the people that worked for me or didn't believe them or believe in them. It was
Right.
just what you said. I tell the story. I used to work at a very large aerospace manufacturer in East Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
Um, and by about Friday afternoon, say 1:30, 2 o'clock, I was pretty well spent after
Sure.
so I would literally sit at my desk and stare at my computer screen and watch my inbox just ping and email after email. And I would, no kidding, no exaggeration, anywhere from 150 to 200 emails a day.
Mm.
And most of them I would just get CC'd on because people would be like, well, I want Critchley to know what's going on. So somehow magically, if he's on this email distribution, it'll just be in his head. Um,
Sure.
and it's like, doesn't exactly work that way. So
Mm-mm.
back to, what we were chatting about, I know I shouldn't say probably, I know I made that mistake where I was just so busy and there's so much stuff going on. I kind
Right.
of like
Right.
ignored / blew people off, and I didn't actively listen.
Right.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest parts of all of that, to your point,
Right.
right? Because you've probably seen it
Absolutely.
as well as I have, where we have a Kaizen event
Mhm.
and it's like a day and a half in is really when you start to feel you're like, as a facilitator, we're no longer pulling people to, right? It's the
Right.
momentum's pushing the
Right.
whole team along. and
Absolutely right.
and
Yeah.
sometimes you actually have to like throttle them back because they're taking on too much,
No, that's,
right?
that's true. Yeah. So the challenge is, so I love to get them into that by the afternoon of day one.
Hmm.
Okay. So my thing, my jam, if you would, that's a technical term, by the way, is the fact that, so I'm all about the sustainability of the session, right? what I want is not only will we implement the solution, figure out the solution and implement, I want to put the sustainability system in place before they leave.
Mhm.
So I teach a thing called Wheel of Sustainability. We'll talk about that later, but it's all about how do we make sure this thing lives on? I mean, they work so darn hard. So to be able to do that, because I'm typically bringing in something that most don't, I have to get them done faster. So I've PDCA'd my own process so many times. I can get prioritization done a lot quicker. I can get, people structured around the work they're going to do. I know how to do that a lot faster so that I can get them into the work sooner. But what I've realized is by doing that, it erases the skepticism and it drives that energy level and enthusiasm a lot sooner, because a lot of the folks I work with have never done Kaizen events. So I get thrust into the tough ones. Okay. Which is great. It's kind of fun because I can kind of set them up for how it should be. So if I get them past their skepticism early in the morning, like we're actually going to do something, they're going to actually listen to us. It's our idea. They're not telling us what to do. I get to let them do that. Now we can get so much more done. So in a throttle back way, basically all we're doing now is we're just going to prioritize the top stuff. So I've got the top 3 to top 25. Well, let's work on the top 3. When you get one done, we'll go into number 4, number 5, number. The only thing that runs out is time. Ideas never run out. Time runs out, right? But if we prioritize right, you're on number 27 at the end. Is it really going to matter? Hopefully not. Not too much.
Right.
You got a lot done. So that's really. But again, what really matters is those solutions are sustained in a way that no one's going to go back the other way.
Right.
And then they really feel empowered at that point.
Nice. And that's, so I did want to dig into that because having, any lean practitioner listening to this has had the similar experience where we do a Kaizen event, people get jazzed up. Friday morning, you get ready for the closeout meeting. You do it right before lunch or right after lunch, maybe. You get the whole management team there and you have the team members speak. Here's what we did. We did some great, awesome things. And everyone's like psyched about it. And we all clap and we all disband. And you issue the Kaizen newspaper. You've got 5, 7, 10 things done, but there's a laundry list after it. Monday morning rolls around and you're back to your regular job. Maybe you bang a few more out and then it just kind of fizzles.
That's right.
Right. So that's pretty stereotypical, I'd say. So when you talk Wheel of Sustainability, which I've seen you mention before online and on your posts, talk to me and the listeners a little bit about what that means and how do you avoid the scenario I just painted?
Okay, great. So number 1, homework is a 4-letter word. Okay. You cannot have Kaizen newspaper items open at the end of a Kaizen. It's a terrible idea. We've all fallen for that. Me too. Okay. You're not going to work on it. You're not going to be focused and you're not going to get the value out of it. So the key is to implement and sustain the things that you're going to do. So over the years, I said to myself, so I was kind of the lone lean practitioner in my company for many, many years. And then we started to grow the thing, which was really cool. So I said, I need to develop something that's going to give us a better chance to win every time. And I was sick of problems creeping back in. So over the many years, I came up with components of sustainability. And eventually I found there are 9 key elements to sustainability that need to be in place. So I'm going to walk you around the wheel.
Okay.
I got a little drawing. There's a little drawing. Okay.
Nice.
Okay. So that's the proposed cover of the book. We'll see. Anyway, so you start at 12 o'clock and there's a thing called notification. So the idea is we're going to tell people about the new standard or the change. So as the team is building their solution, they're thinking of every component. Okay. So we're actually introducing the wheel on day 1 of any Kaizen, and I'm introduced it to the sponsor before the Kaizen even starts. Okay. So it's a system. I'm giving them an image of what good looks like from a leadership commitment and support standpoint.
Okay.
The ultimate goal is that the team wins. Okay, that's the goal. Whatever the problem is, we want to have a winning experience. So I'll tell you about the wheel and then I'll tell you how I prep them for it. So notification is that I'm going to tell you about the changes. Okay, the first thing, so think of the old time crew meeting. office meeting, but it's got to be more about the why than the what. This is the new thing we're going to do. This is why it's going to make us safer, more productive, et cetera. So people in the audience are going to look the leaders in the eye to see if they really mean it. Do they really know what it is? And sometimes it's team members also, but there always should be some form of leadership support in this. The second one is now somebody's going to use the changes. So we're going to do training and review. So in the extreme sense, the best sense, but not everybody I work with does it, it's training within industry is the model. I call the simpler version tell, show, do. So I'm going to tell you about the change. And we're going to do this one-on-one. We're not going to do this with big groups. We're not going to do it through PowerPoint. We're going to do it one-on-one. So I'm going to tell you about the change. I'm going to demonstrate it for you, give you a chance to ask me about it. Then I'm going to let you demonstrate it to me to verify that you truly understand. And I can make corrections at that point. So this is a respect for people thing. You put the time in and the attention. So typically my team members are doing these one-on-one training and reviews during the Kaizen. Okay. So if I got 12 people on the team, I got 12 trainers because they know what they just did. Okay. Now they can't get it all done there, but at least they get to learn how to train. Okay. Third one is visible evidence. So the idea being that, okay, we have this new standard, we've made this change from 20 feet away, I should be able to tell that everything's working or not working. Because if it's not working, I need to come in and help. If it is working, I need to come in and congratulate you, right? So both of those require engagement because if you just walk by, it won't be important, okay? So you think about shadow boards, right? So I've been to companies where every tool's on the shadow board. I've been to more companies where 2 tools are on the shadow board. Well, that's visible evidence that shows that they don't,
right.
A mean word is they don't care. But what it means is it's not important enough.
Right. Because they're not using it.
Right. So you don't design a shadow board unless it's critical to help you be safer, more productive, higher quality, right? The next spoke is the spoke number 4. It's about 4:30 around the clock. And that is all tools available. What that means is that I give you everything you need to do what you designed. So in this case, if I need a crescent wrench in 4 locations, I'm going to give you 4 crescent wrenches and we're going to hang them in each of those 4 locations, right? That way I don't have to worry about carrying it from place to place. No one's looking for it. They didn't leave it somewhere. So leadership, management, sponsorship has to say yes. When the team says, look, we've determined to make this work, we need 4. And the answer can only be yes. Now, it doesn't have to be manufacturing. It can be computer programs, traveling laptops, printer paper, whatever it is. The answer is yes. Next spoke at 6 o'clock is called clear benefits. So this is the idea that, Paul, we're going to make a change and it's going to impact you. What do you think of that? And you're going to give me unfiltered feedback. So this is my team's least favorite thing to do in the middle of a Kaizen, because 12 people are on the team. The other 180 people have no idea what we're doing. Early, not late, early in the Kaizen, maybe day 2, we're actually walking out and talking to people about what we're thinking and doing. And guess what they normally think of our idea?
Hate it.
They hate it. So teams hate me sending them out there because they're going to get that. So now they got to either improve it, convince it, or try it. Fantastic way to find out. Do it before you're 100% done. So my teams hate that, right? The next is layered audits. So people should be familiar with this, but the person doing their work, they audit their work on some, frequency. There are supervisor audits with less frequency. As you go up the chain, you do it with less frequency, but the audit needs to be engaging. I want to do it with you, and it needs to be 5 minutes or less. So pick the critical things, let everybody know you were there by making it visible and visual, engage with them. Don't do it from afar, and correct the behavior if it's not. So somebody's doing something unsafe, you'd correct it anyway, right? If the new standard's that critical, so you have to pick the things that are critical. And you don't have to audit the exact same things every day or the same places. In fact, you shouldn't. So rotate areas, people, and auditors. The 7th one's accountability. So these all kind of overlap each other. I mean, I'm not scientific here, okay? It's just kind of what I noticed, but I was able to kind of describe them separately. So accountability, the idea being that if I'm late for a meeting and I see something unsafe to my left, do I go to the meeting or do I stop the unsafe act? That's accountability. That's an image of accountability. So It's the same thing with somebody deviating from the standard. Is that okay? You're going to walk by? All you've done then is say, it's okay to be off standard. Well, that's how we fail. So then you engage in a helping way, right? So what's keeping you from standard? How can I help you get back to standard? Is there somebody that I can call? Are you aware of the standard? Sometimes they're not aware.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the best of intentions, people don't think about it. The last spoke is what I call recognition. And recognition is all about cause and effect, understanding that we made a change and something good happened, telling those stories. So I use the term recognition. Somebody said, well, that's awareness. I call it recognition. You can call it anything you want. But basically, somebody did something good and they're telling a story about it, and others go, ooh, I want to do that. And the ultimate win is when somebody tells that other person's story that wasn't even involved in it, but they're sharing it, and it gets the organization wanting to do more beneficial activity. Now, the thing in the hub, that's all that spoke. The thing in the hub is the leadership commitment. The idea that leadership has to be committed enough, number one, let the team support the team in every single way that they need to, participate, kick off, we'll charter the event. And when team members need time or they have question or request for resources, you have to be there for them. Mm-hmm. So you said, how do you get that done? Well, so I review all this with leadership prior to any Kaizen event. Because if they're not ready to do this, if they're saying, well, you say you need 3.5 days, but I can only give you 2, can you do it in less? You can do anything less, but you're not going to do it justice. So don't do it. Mm-hmm. So that's the test of commitment. Right?
Have you ever had that situation where you've gone, walk somebody through like you just did with us, some CEO or manager or somebody somewhere, and they're like, I like everything you said except this last part.
Yep.
What happened? What do you do then? You walk away?
Sometimes you don't do business with them. You have to be willing. So go back to the premise. The idea is to give the team a winning experience. Think about it. What are we trying to do? We're trying to solve a critical business problem. If that's not important enough to make that level of commitment, then don't waste anybody's time. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry, I jumped in on you, but so we can do that now as consultants, right? I mean, because we do the same thing, not often, because thankfully it doesn't happen often, but there are times when it's like, I just don't think we're the ones for you. Right. But because a lot of people who listen to this, work in a lean program office, or they're the lean champion, so they can't just walk away. Yep. So when you were in industry, did you have these situations? And in that situation, you're employed by, the XYZ company. What do you do then? Okay.
So think about that. So I did that for years. I always got that question, can't we do it in a shorter period of time? So that is on me to influence them and their thinking, to help them have a vision of why this period of time is necessary. Okay. So most of the time, I won't say all the time, most of the time I was successful to give them the image of why that was necessary. Now, as I did more Kaizen and coached more people, my credibility grew.
Sure.
Right. So they could say, well, when Adam says 3 days, you need 3 days. Yeah. And you're going to get a lot out of those 3 days. So don't do 2 days. But I have had to do 2 days. So when you go 2 days on a 3-day session, you basically are going to have to cut off the low, it's still going to be lower priority. You're just going to have to make some choices. Right. And the last thing you can do in a company like that is say, well, I told you so. I couldn't do that.
Well, yeah.
But right. That never plays well. But I will tell you, if you know me, I'm pretty tenacious and pushy and, pretty principled. I always try to stay at the principle of it. Do you want your team to win? Here are the pieces that are going to help lead them to the win. If we take pieces out, it's less likely that they're going to win. Here is why. So it's a respect for people thing on going upward as well as sideways and, to the team. So I have to respect the leader's time. If they can only give 2 days, but it's still critical to do, my responsibility is how can I give them the highest value in that shorter period of time?
Mhm.
Okay. So as an internal guy, sometimes I didn't have a choice. As an external person, I do have a choice. But I am making a decision of revenue versus zero revenue, right? There
Right.
is, I mean, people don't always like that idea. But luckily for me, at this point, I'd prefer to give the team the winning experience and walk away if I have to.
Yeah, and that's valid, right? So we have that luxury, but
Right.
the flip side of that coin, as you just mentioned, is the same because
Right.
we have a lot of manufacturing clients. It just so happens because of where we are geographically. We have a lot
Right.
of aerospace suppliers, tier 1, tier 2, that are
Right.
clients of ours.
Right.
None of those people, not one, prior to COVID, and probably mostly true even now, all of those places were looking for people, whether it be inspectors, CMM operators, engineers,
Hmm.
machinists,
Hmm.
right? You name it. So a lot of times that's what I hear, what we hear as pushback, if you want to call it that, is I just don't have that much time. I
Sure.
know, Paul, Adam, when you say give me 3 days or 4 days or whatever, I know 100% I'm going to see that payback period in 2 months, 3 months, six, whatever it is. And I know beyond that, it's all gravy. I
Yeah.
just can't give you that time right now.
Yeah.
So I think, I feel like as lean
Challenge.
practitioners, to your point, sometimes we have to challenge ourselves a little bit to say, okay,
Absolutely.
it doesn't necessarily have to be this exact way
Right.
every single time.
Right.
Understand, however, that usually this is how we do it, and this is the formula, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
We can change that formula, but
Yeah.
you're not going to get it all. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's right. So you do have that conversation to say, I can do this, but I can't do all of this. Here are the things, and if they're willing to do that, that's fine. Now, I'll tell you, I was just with a group earlier this week to charter. So chartering is very critical to me. One thing, Paul, I try to do is the problem statement in the charter always needs to have a financial component to it, unless it's a pure safety Kaizen,
Mhm.
which is still quite, I mean, there's nothing more important than people's safety. So, but I mean, most of the time I get pulled in because it's financial. So, what I've told them is getting the team together is actually the higher value and the more investment than it is in the consultant. And I'm not the cheapest guy in the block, and I'm sure you're not either. But the thing we're about to do that we just chartered was like a 20 to 40x return for these guys. So this isn't a 2 month, they need to do it. It's important to them. They just needed outside help because their internal help. This was a little beyond what their current skills are. Nothing wrong with what they're doing. They're doing great work, but they just know that I have that operations and mechanical event plus the facilitation plus the ability to push them to a conclusion. So, but I, the plant manager, it's like, why do you think? Do you really need 4 days? Listen,
Well,
I said, I tell you what, if we finish early, we'll send them home early.
right.
Is that okay? And they're like, okay, that's cool. Because
Yeah.
sometimes the 4 days, that's just, I'm just kind of spitballing based upon 300 or 400 of these things. You're just doing the best you can. The worst thing is to shortcut.
Right.
You don't
Right.
want to rush them so that they miss. We want them to learn some of these techniques so that they can do it when we're gone.
Right. And that's the whole idea. That's what we'd say the same thing. It's like you don't
Yeah.
want this just to be, hey, Paul's coming, so we have to do this.
Right.
And that's because it's pretty evident. It's like you're really, it's like when you check up on your kids if they clean their room. You can tell if they did it 5 minutes before you got there,
Yeah, you can.
you know.
Just check
So
under the bed.
yeah, right, exactly. So but yeah, this isn't the whole idea between, is just that. It's the respect for people pillar is all
Right.
about engagement. That's not the okay, we have a lean Kaizen project this month. I mean, I used to work
Right.
for a company. I've talked about them on the podcast before, not by name, but we had a corporate lean person, and one of his edicts was you have to have a Kaizen event every month.
Ah,
And you had it, for
mhm.
the end of the year, you had to have had at least 12.
Right.
Kudos to you if you had more. Not nowhere in there was
Yeah.
there any amount of measurement or
Right.
KPI on
Yeah.
effectiveness or
Right.
sustainability or any of
Yeah.
that. It was a check in
Yeah.
the box.
That's a shame.
And I'm like, you know what? You don't know what you're doing.
Right.
And he didn't, well, I didn't say it exactly
I'm
like
sure he
that,
didn't
but
like
I
that.
certainly got that message across. He didn't like that at all. But
No.
I'm like, this is stupid
Right.
because we're spending a whole week doing a Kaizen event. 3 weeks from now, we're going to go off to do another one.
Mhm.
We don't have a program office. I'm the
Right.
ME manager and the facilities manager and the lean champion for the site. I'm
Right.
like, I'm telling you, this is not the right way to do this. And they didn't really want to hear it. So I'm
I
like,
understand.
we're
Yeah.
going to do what we did some stuff. We
Mhm.
got some okay benefits out of it, but
Sure.
I didn't like it. And we didn't get the culture piece we didn't address at all.
Right.
People
Right.
did not feel more engaged, did not feel more empowered.
Right.
I'm like, we are missing the point. We're doing exactly not
Exactly.
what we should be doing with this. We're looking at, well, we saved whatever thousands of dollars a year. And then we give
Mhm.
ourselves a pat on the back and think we did a good job. And I'm like,
Right.
it didn't take long for me to figure. I'm like, this is so wrong. It makes my heart hurt.
Yeah, I've been there. I
So,
understand that.
so
Understand that. Yeah.
Adam, I always do like to take a little bit of a break from the
Okay.
podcast and play something I like to
Cool.
call the wicked fun part.
Okay.
You up
Cool.
for it?
Absolutely.
All
Hit
right,
me.
here we go. So I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire questions. May or may not, probably not, have anything to do with lean.
No worries.
All right. Do you have any advice for a previous boss of yours? And you don't have to name this person, that maybe they could have done their job a little bit better, engaged you a little bit more.
Yeah, I think, I had a great previous boss. I mean, maybe not the most recent one, but the one I was with for about 6 years before I left the company. And I would say the advice would be that sometimes we get too bound up in this corporate structure that we don't get to do as much of what is right versus what is required. Right. So I can tell you that I was kicked. I attempted to do the X chart, right?
Oh,
You
the
know,
X-mate. Yeah.
yeah, I brought it because it wasn't clear what all our value streams were doing, and there was no clear, obvious strategy that everybody could look at. So I brought it in, and I only got kicked out of his office 3 different times. So I'm not saying that the X chart was the way to go, but what I was saying was we needed a visible way for everybody to truly know where our highest priorities were. So sometimes it's all about be willing to let go of some of those preconceived notions and just be willing to not be perfect, right? Because this guy is fabulous. I mean, I have utmost respect, but he just sometimes wanted everything to look and feel perfect before he was ready to commit.
Mhm.
And sometimes just ugly is okay if it works. So eventually he kind of got there, but there were a few things we just never got for that. So that would be that advice. Yeah.
Nice. And that's a valid point, because you're right. As I think one of the reasons we see resistance to
Mhm.
lean at the managerial level or executive level is there's that pressure of always needing to have the right answer.
Absolutely.
And certainly, in larger well, I guess it's true for all companies, but my personal experience, the larger companies are
Right.
worse when it comes to the politics stuff.
Yeah.
And there's no way we're going to put something out there that we haven't fully vetted and thought it
Right.
through. And this
Right.
is the way. So when we give it, this is the way we're going to do it. And it's
Right.
like, no, you don't have to. Just let's try. It's an experiment, and roll up your sleeves,
Mm-hmm.
go shoulder to shoulder and say, all right, I'd like to try this.
Yeah.
Let's give it a shot. If you guys hate it and we do it for a week or two,
Right.
then we won't do it anymore. But let's just
Right.
give it a try.
Give it a shot.
There's that dichotomy of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we have our
Cool.
we have our work cut out for us, I guess.
Always.
Let's see. What are you working towards in your free time right now?
Well, that's a
And I didn't pick
so
that one on purpose, but
that's good. So I've used the whole lockdown to write my first book. And so for those of you who have written a book, God help us all.
yeah.
I had no idea what goes into that. So the word free time is kind of a cute thing. I finally got to the point that I've finished editing and I now have a book formatter. So I'm kind of interested to see what what free time would look like. Now, I've also realized, because I'm not truly a writer, I'm an author, but I'm not a writer. Everybody's got a story to tell, by the way. So I would crank up the tunes early in the morning. They'd go real. I'm an old hair metal guy. If you want to ask about some of the bands I have seen, that kind of silly stuff. But I'd type with the crank tunes for a couple hours and say, okay, enough of that. And I'd tell stories like, people have their blogs. I have my story blogs, and they fit into the book I'm writing, and it made me smile. But after a while, I just got tired of writing. So I'm kind of excited to know that at some point the book will be out of my hands.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to that. Ooh, that would be nice. Now, the cool thing is, business is kind of coming back. Business was really, really slow because I'm an on-site guy. I know there's a lot of virtual Kaizen going on, and I think the world of the folks that are able to do that. That's not my model at this point. It should be, but it isn't. I love to be in Gemba. I love to be with the teams, and luckily some of that's happening again. So free time, I would love to just relax a little bit. When we can visit family a little more. I'm not sure I'm ready to travel for fun yet, but when we can, I can't wait to do that. Yeah, and just enjoy the fruits of the labor, right? To say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you did it. There's a lot of inner satisfaction to say, I didn't know I could write a book. Okay, I wrote a book. I don't know if anybody will think it's any good, but at least it's done.
Well,
So,
you know what?
yeah.
I mean, just like with lean, it's
Right.
you took it on, you saw it through,
Gave it a shot.
and you try it. If it doesn't work, you try something else, right?
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
write a second edition, or you write a different one, or whatever.
Well, if you ever watched Rocky, you might remember that Apollo Creed said, "Ain't gonna be no rematch."
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying for now, anyway.
Yeah, I know, right?
Ain't
You're
gonna be no
gonna right.
rematch.
I don't blame you. I'd be like, all right, I can't even think book and anything right now.
I mean, I've got way more stories to tell, but I'm gonna put that to the side for a while, I think.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
How about what quality do you admire most in others?
I think just when people care about others, right? That you honestly, I love the people that just give of themselves to make things better, and they care about so they're not in it for themselves. I mean, we all have our survival needs, and I get that, but you get joy out of the when people solve problems. So I just love that when people just genuinely give of themselves for others' benefit. It's just, how can you not admire that?
Nice. Yeah, I'm right there with you. All right, final one. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Are you sure you're at the right place? No, I'm not. What are you doing here so soon? Or what took you so long? How about that one? What took you so long?
There you go. Nice. So Adam, you tipped your hand a little bit, but the one of the last things that's okay. That's fine. I
Okay.
wanted so I did want to, you mentioned you have a book coming
Yeah.
out. So it's written, it's edited, or it's
It's
getting edited.
So it's written and edited, meaning there's no new stuff going in there. It's at a guy that does format. So I'm self-publishing. So, you have to find your people that can help you along the way. And thankfully there are a lot of good folks that helped along the way. Had some nice beta readers, and, they really challenged my thinking a lot. So there's a gentleman that's doing book formatting. I'm his first technical book he's ever done. He's mostly in the horror genre. So I had to change his fonts
Yeah.
to be more. I'm like, dude, that looks a little too gothic for me. But anyway, so he's in that process, and then there's a group that's going to help me, you know, navigate the process through Amazon. Hopefully they'll approve it. It's all about the wheel of sustainability and all my silly adventures, and how that kind of led me to build the wheel, and how they support the wheel, and that kind of good stuff. So shooting for the end of February. I
Okay.
think we're going to try to launch 23rd or 24th. I'm not 100% sure yet, because I'm an engineer, not a marketing guy. But I'm getting a little help, and folks seem to like, those that have read to edit a little bit. They seem to be pretty positive about it, and so yeah. So this is the attempt at a cover. So a little
Nice.
self promotion here.
That's okay. You're allowed. So that's the
I'm
title,
allowed
is
to
the
do
Wheel of
it.
Sustainability.
Wheel of Sustainability.
Cool.
It's like I said, it's kind of my jam. I'm very passionate about it, and hopefully, I had a few goals. One was get your story out there, right? And the second was provide some value. So luckily, there's some things in there that if you haven't seen them before, it's not necessarily a lean book. Okay, obviously, I've been influenced by lean my whole career. So the principles of lean are there, but I'm not going to explain the Toyota house, and I'm not going to explain all the various terms. I'm going to explain kind of how they support that. And the goal was to make it actually usable, practical. So the goal by the end of the book is that you can apply it yourself without any help. But if you want to call Adam, that's cool too. But hopefully there's enough in there that you can do like right away. And not just in manufacturing, not just in business. I got stories from people's homes and nonprofits and just various other things, like how would I do this in my kitchen, in my pantry, in my garage, talking to my kids. So there's a bunch of different stuff because I just was kind of scattered all over the place.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, lean's universal. It can be applied anywhere. It's not a manufacturing thing or just a healthcare thing even anymore. You could put it, the tools are the tools, and the right.
Tools are the tools. Right.
And
absolutely.
And respect for people. I mean, come on, that doesn't belong to lean.
No, it sure doesn't. It's been around a lot longer than any of us listening are.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Nice. So Adam, I'll say thank you. And then is there anything that you wanted to mention that I didn't get a chance to poke at a little bit, or a story you wanted to close out on, anything like that?
Yeah, you probably don't have enough time for all my stories. So all I would say to you, Paul, is, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I can be found, I have a YouTube channel, just look up Adam Lawrence, but I think there's a few of those. So I'm not really sure how you find me directly, but I have a LinkedIn. I post on LinkedIn. My company is Process Improvement Partners. I have a company page. I have a website, pi-partners.com. And in the LinkedIn, my contact information, you can email me or call me. I've got my cell, and I love getting calls. People say, what were you talking about? I don't understand that. Those are great calls. Those are so much fun. So any of that, I'm very open. It's just me and my wife. She's the office manager. I'm the one that goes out. She puts me on the road, get to work.
Nice.
But I love these conversations, just so much fun. So if I've said something in a way that challenges somebody's thinking, well, hit me with an email or give me a call and let's talk about it, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Awesome. And I'll find all that stuff, your YouTube channel and everything. I'll link to it in the show notes. So it'll make it easy for anybody watching or listening to be able to find them.
Yeah. And like I said, the book we're attempting the end of February. So at some point I have to figure out how that works, like ordering and I'm not really anticipating a lot of orders, but I guess I should be ready for one. So I have to have a way. Like my cousin might want one. I don't know. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. I hope everything, goes well. And certainly, I admire you for taking that on. And I mean, I know, having done one chapter in one book a few years ago, it's a pretty hefty task. So nice job.
Couldn't have asked for a better time to do it.
Yeah.
Definitely had a lot of time on my hands. So that was, I started in March, and it'll finish in February. So it can be done in a year. I guess some people could do it even less, but that's me. That's what I did.
Nice. Yeah. Cool. All right, Adam, we'll let you go. Thank you again for joining us. And I know I got a lot out of it. So that's why I love doing this. I always learn something.
Well, glad to be able to give you something of value. So Thanks again.
All right, Adam, take it easy.
You too.
Hey, everybody, it's Paul. Before I let you go, I just wanted to say thanks again for listening. You've really made doing this podcast a very rewarding experience for me. I get a lot of messages from listeners, and everyone has something nice to say, which I very much appreciate. Of course, I'm always open to feedback on ways we can make it better. I mean, that's Kaizen after all, and by no stretch do I claim to have got this all figured out. So if there's things that I could do better, please, by all means, feel free to reach out and let me know. And likewise, if there's somebody that you think would be a great guest, also let me know. There's a chance I don't know who those folks are. So somebody that you can help put us in touch with, somebody you want to learn more about, certainly let me know and I'll reach out to those folks. But I hope you find the podcast fun and entertaining, educational, and maybe even a little inspirational, I hope. That's really what I'm going after with this whole thing. So thanks again. And one small ask, if you don't mind, if you listen, whatever your preferred platform is, if you could just, subscribe, give us 5 stars on Apple or whatever, again, whatever platform you listen to, it helps. The algorithms like it. So if you could do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And we'll talk to you real soon. Thanks, everybody.